What's up, everyone? Welcome into the Dear Miss Fantasy Show with me, your host, Tara Roberts. This is the official mailbag show for Player Profiler. It is Wednesday, August 26th, and I'm live on YouTube taking your questions. I've got mailbag questions for us, and I've got some general fantasy news for us to go through. And of course, any comments that you have or questions that you have, as always, drop them in the chat. But we can go ahead and get started with the news that we've had come through. Start us off with one that I think you guys will appreciate, because I do believe we talked about this a little bit on the channel last week. Kayshon Boutte to the Houston Texans, and we'll talk about what that means for their receiving core. We talked about the possibility of Kayshon Boutte being traded, not specifically to the Texans, but the possibility of Kayshon Boutte being traded last week because he should be. He was, unfortunately, I loved Kayshon Boutte last season. Just in general, the promise that he has shown. And it's very interesting, right? Because he was one of those players who had high upside as a prospect, then had downturn production in college, came out underwhelming. So we really didn't think there was much there, but he's clearly been working his way up there. And I think he's deserving of being a starter, but with the addition of both A.J. Brown and Romeo Doubs, clearly, unfortunately, there was no place for him in New England because of alignment. He is a deep threat. He doesn't play in the slot. So if you're looking at Romeo Doubs, A.J. Brown, and then unfortunately they have to put, not unfortunately, Demario Douglas is fine, but they have to put Demario Douglas on the field then as a third wide receiver because he's the one that can play in the slot. So that just made Kayshon Boutte the odd man out. But there were plenty of locations to where he could go and be a starter, and the Texans became one of those locations when unfortunately Jaden Higgins went down with the ACL injury. We talked about Tank Dell a little bit. I still, if you want to take a late round dart throw on Tank Dell in deeper leagues, it's not the worst thing in the world, but we know that the Texans are being cautious with them. They want him to bring him along slowly. And do a nice ramp up, make sure that everything is okay with him because he's coming back from a significant injury. And Jaden Higgins being there was going to allow them to do that, right? We were drafting Jaden Higgins as the wide receiver 2. We were not drafting Tank Dell as the wide receiver 2 because we instinctually knew that they would not have to utilize him and push him along. The injury to Jaden Higgins would have pushed Tank Dell into an uncomfortable timeline. So adding Kayshon Boutte makes everything A-okay there in Houston. In terms of draft location, it's interesting because I actually, I was on the clock shortly after the trade, and so I was able to draft Kayshon Boutte. And, Kayshon, the ADP has risen, but not significantly. I rose him in my rankings. I don't know why it hasn't risen more than it has. Now, granted, I think it's up like 3 to 5 rounds. Right now, it's at round 17. It should go significantly higher than that. Where I drafted him in my draft, it's an industry draft flex leagues for Jake Seeley. I drafted him, it's a 14-team league. I drafted him in round 12. So that works out to, in a 12-team league, around round 14. I think 14, 15 is a reasonable area to target him. If I was making comparisons, I'm grabbing the rookies first, right? I would grab, and a lot of those rookies have shot up, but let's jump to a Jacoby Lane or perhaps a Ted Hurst. I would grab those type of rookies before I would try to get Kayshon Boutte, although ironically, I was able to draft Ted Hurst right after that, so yay me. But I'd probably lean towards the rookies and then go with Kayshon Boutte because when we look at him in the context of that Texans offense, he is going to be the deep threat. I'm sure he can be a little bit more versatile, but they have Jalen Noel in the slot. Nico Collins can obviously play all over. So more than likely, we're going to see primary usage of Kayshon Boutte be downfield, and he's excellent at that. He had a fantastic catch rate with Drake May, so this is going to be a very reliable deep threat option for CJ Stroud. Hopefully, maybe this will help him because Jaden Higgins, like him, love him, very cool. But Kayshon Boutte, reliability from a deep threat perspective, hopefully that can give a nice different aspect to kind of maybe elevate CJ Stroud's game there. we're not looking at CJ Stroud as a target outside of Superflex, but this is good things. So happy for the Texans to get this to reinforce their receiving core. I do believe that Kayshon Boutte is the wide receiver too. And happy for Kayshon Boutte to now get the opportunity to start elsewhere, since that was not going to happen, unfortunately. Let's see here. Jump into the chat. Hi to Easy E, was in here early, as always. Hi to John in the chat. Truth in the chat says 5th pick, 12-man league, PPR, PPC, and IDP. Whew, okay. CMC, JT, or Amon-Ra St. Brown. Points per carry does make me feel certain types of way about JT. I do theoretically have CMC ranked higher than JT. I would take JT before Amon-Ra St. Brown, and I would take Amon-Ra St. Brown before CMC, just because I am being a little bit more cautious. My preference there would be to go towards JT, especially with added points per carry. Yeah, that's my preference there for you. All fine picks, but even in full PPR, I still lean towards JT on that one. From Henry Odom. Hello, Tara. Draft this weekend. Yay. And I'm so torn between Lamb and Jefferson situation. I need a tiebreaker help. Well, it's preference. Do you want to go safety or risk? If you're wanting to play it safe with your first round pick, it's CD. If you want to play it a little bit riskier, Justin Jefferson. I think I'm more inclined to lean, I waver in terms of whether I want to be super safe or extra risky in the first round. You guys know that I am worried about the risk of CMC and the aggressive workload that he had last season. With Justin Jefferson, I don't have concerns. Obviously, he's dealt with injuries in the past, right? But I don't have concerns about Justin Jefferson being on the field. It's just how much we're trusting Kyler Murray to make it through the season, because I do have confidence that Kyler Murray can supply Justin Jefferson with enough volume for him to have a clear wide receiver one season. That's not a question for me. The thing that I think will happen there is that we won't get a lot of touchdowns, which is perfectly fine. We're looking for volume and yardage for Justin Jefferson to just kind of do his thing that he has done. Literally 1,400 plus yards in every single season, with the exception of last year with JJ McCarthy. So depending on how you want to go, if you want to play it safer, go with CeeDee Lamb. If you want to play it risky, go with Justin Jefferson. I don't know if that helps you, because maybe you're undecided on whether or not you want to take that risk. I will say, if you do go with Justin Jefferson, you might want to lean towards maybe a safer option when you come around in wide receiver or in running back in round 2. And maybe just kind of play it a little bit safer and not get too risky on that end. But again, that just depends on who swings around. But my lean would be just being like a little bit risky there with Jefferson, if I had to force you to pick one. But it's just safety versus risk. Dion Polk says a lot of injuries this preseason, way too many. It's always like that though. But I feel like, if anything, I kind of, and not to criticize beat reporters by any means, but I feel like we're getting maybe a lot of more overreactions from beat reporters than we typically get, and that's making it more dramatic. Whereas an Ashton Genty injury, we would have, gotten news that there was an injury and we would have waited to see, but instead we get the dramatic update of there being a prayer circle and thinking that it's a season-ending injury. So I feel like that's the difference, is there's always preseason injuries, but some of the reporting has been a wee bit dramatic on a lot of these guys. So yeah, I feel like that's the difference here, but the injuries have been so frustrating. From John, 7545. Hey, Tara, draft this weekend, rookie dynasty, draft 6-pick, 12-team. Which rookie wide receiver would you suggest? Now, this gets tricky, right? Because we're at the point, if we had asked this question, let me pull up rookie rankings real quick. If we had asked this question back in May, June, or April, May, June, would have been very simple. But now we've got the added in factor of the Jordan Tyson injury, the recurring issue that we were all worried about and hoping that would, go away once he got into the NFL. Now we've got the hamstring injury again, got to see a specialist. And we're sitting here and we're thinking, okay, this makes it a little bit concerning because let's say you get to pick 6. Before, obviously, Jordan Tyson wouldn't exist. I'm assuming not Superflex, right? But before we get there, we would assume that we would not have Jordan Tyson at that pick. He could be there, honestly, if people are a little bit wary. Perhaps we get, someone in your draft leans and says, okay, I would rather just go ahead and take Jadarian Price. Obviously, Casey Concepcion is getting a lot of positive feedback. So from that perspective, pick 6, the way that I would go for you is if Jordan Tyson, if you're getting a discount on Jordan Tyson and people are passing over because of the injury issue, I would still take him at the 6 because that's a pretty good discount on a guy who was the wide receiver too. If not, then you should have Casey Concepcion there, and that would be my preference. So Tyson, if he falls, still take that risk, and otherwise just go Casey Concepcion. Obviously, the Browns situation at quarterback is very frustrating. And honestly, and I guess we haven't really talked about Deshaun Watson versus Shedeur Sanders because that decision happened prior to the last show. But honestly, I kind of feel like more than likely we're going to see Deshaun just kind of be mediocre or subpar the first couple of weeks, and then they'll switch things up and give Shedeur a try. So perhaps that'll breathe some life into the offense. But either way, more than likely, the scenario is that the Browns end up, unless Shedeur Sanders does have a breakout season and shows promise, the Browns will have another quarterback in 2027. And for right now, we do have a fairly nice quarterback class. Now, obviously, things can change. We always go in there thinking that a rookie class is going to be, we're going to have plenty of quarterback options. It's going to be solid, and then everything gets thrown sideways. But as of right now, it's looking like whoever is picking towards the top is going to get a nice selection of quarterbacks. So if Shedeur Sanders doesn't work out, then obviously the Browns will have a higher end pick. So I'm okay with going Concepcion right there at that pick. Perfectly fine. So, you got a couple options, a nice default option and then a reach option if it does fall to you. From Truth. Nice. I like the comment here. Truth says, oh yeah, I love you, Tara. You are down to earth with real sense. Thank you. Appreciate that. That's what I try to bring to the channel. Someone commented this on another video, like it was like realistic advice. And I was like, yes, like I try not to be a hot take artist. I don't think it really fits me well in my persona because I don't do a lot of like yelling. It's very, very even keel. So I try to like moderate, lukewarm takes with reasonable explanations. Like I'm not always going to be right, but we will talk through the logic. I'm not going to give you an answer without some logical reasoning, and it could be wrong. It could go the exact opposite direction, right? But at least we talk through it from a logical perspective. So we came to a good conclusion. John says, happy you're live, Tara. I need help in this draft. Nice. Let's talk it through. Darren gave 440 joules and said unk alert. From Razzle, hi Tara. So if you wait on tight end, perfect. I actually had a mailbag question on this. Were you the one I don't know if you were the one. Someone asked me a mailbag question on this, so I'll pull this up as well. But Razzle says, hi, Tara. So if you wait on tight end, Juwan Johnson or Jake Ferguson, Cowboys offense should score more than the Saints. So just go with the better offense. This is perfect timing because I also had a mailbag question on this. The mailbag question was also around tight end strategy because it's getting a little bit more ambiguous. As we keep working through the preseason, we're trying to figure out, like we had, Sam Laporta dealing with an injury. Tyler Warren had a little injury scare. Seems like the Laporta injury is not as big of an issue. It seems like the Warren issue is not an issue. Seems like supposedly the Laporta issue is not major, but I'm kind of skeptical because we have dealt with injury issues with Laporta, so that does kind of raise my antennas of like, whoa now, because Laporta had been falling in and out of that comfort area for me. And I was like, okay, you know what? I can get behind it at his value because basically, like, I could get behind it because I am very pro Jared Goff this season. The schedule lines up beautifully. Offensive line injury does make me a little bit concerned, but I'm not trying not to overreact to one offensive line injury. It's when you get the multiples in there that I start to panic a little. So, but all things pointing towards a massive season for Jared Goff in terms of the way their schedule lines up. Back half of the season is loaded with dome games. Loaded, literally like three outdoor games. One is Chicago in championship week, so FYI, just be prepared for that. And then the other is like outdoor at Miami, and then an international game, and then just domes on top of domes. And their defensive secondary is still dealing with a significant amount of injuries. So I think we're going to continue to see with Detroit just these high point total games. Both teams pushing volume back and forth. Defense struggling to stop people through the air because they are better against the run. So teams just unloading on them through the air, especially because they have to keep up with Detroit's offense, which will be clicking on all cylinders. So a lot of high volume games. So I could get behind the idea of like, okay, well, I'm good with Amon-Ra, I'm good with Jameson, and I can be good with Laporta because it's just a ton of volume. And obviously I'm good with Gibbs. But I'm like, okay, it's just a ton of volume. But if you're still already in season dealing with another nagging injury, it does make me concerned. It makes me want to kind of push you out of my circle of trust, right? So when we're looking at how we deal with tight end, because we know that top two, excellent, and Brock Bowers and Trey McBride, no question marks. I have zero issues with Colston Loveland. I prefer Tyler Ward. Daniel Jones is good. As long as Daniel Jones is good and healthy, and he appears to be, we have no problem with that. The Colts offense should not have any major issues. So I'm good with Jalen Warren or Tyler Warren, but I do have him like a slight tier-ish below Colston Loveland just because he has less offensive risk, but still good with him. Then you have Tucker Kraft, who is 5th ranked, but I warn people just be prepared early on that you might need a streaming option because the Packers and sorry guys, it's been a long day. I'll explain to you guys in a second why it's been a long day, but the Packers and Tucker Kraft have specifically stated that they are going to ramp him up slowly. It sounds like it's like a 5-6 game period. I think it could be a little lower than that because personally looking back at the ramp up period for Christian Watson last year, it was literally 2 games before they got him onto a more regular snap count. So maybe they're being extra cautious, but I would not be shocked if it was just more of like the 2 to 3 game time period where they limit his snaps below 50% and then they push him up. So just keep that in mind. And then after that, you guys know I'm good with Harold Fanta Jr., good with Kyle Pitts, but then you get into this nasty gap, right? Where you're looking at, okay, do I go with Travis Kelce? Do I look at Dalton Kincaid? And that's a big no for me. That's not a question at all. Please, I will never advise you to draft Dalton Kincaid this year. Wide receiver room, more addition into that, way too many pass catchers. We're not going to see a dramatic increase in pass volume for Josh Allen. And the Bills stated that as Dalton Kincaid was dealing with these nagging injuries, their approach might be to limit his usage. They extended Dawson Knox. So all of that adds up to me believing that consistency might be an issue in terms of potential limited snap counts and just volume going towards that wide receiver core with the addition of DJ Moore, to not feel super good about Dalton Kincaid as my tight end 1 when he's literally only performed as a tight end 1 his rookie season, right? I'm not there. So Isaiah Likely was someone who I was feeling good with, but then the Giants preseason usage has just spooked me. We'll talk about the Giants in general in a second, but I'm just getting very unbelievably spooked by every single thing they are doing during training camp in the preseason that is making me nervous about drafting literally any of them outside of Malik Neighbors, just from a pure target perspective. So honestly, my gap starts with after Kyle Pitts, it goes all the way to Dallas Goedert. That is, if you're looking to push it back. In Dallas Goedert, you can get him around round 10. Let me double check to make sure that it has not moved up significantly recently. I don't think it should have. Goddard, where are you? Dallas Goedert, yeah, round 10. Holding steady. Early round 10 pick is my preference. So if you can't get one of the higher end options or one of the good, safe mid-round options, I gap and skip all the way to round 10 and go to Dallas Goedert. I trust Dallas Goedert. We have unfortunately heard a lot of negative things about Eli Stowers just not picking up, which I hate. But unfortunately, it sounds like he's just not picking up the way that they would have hoped. Now, granted, that does not mean that he can't be something at some point this season. But Dallas Goedert is very solidified, the tight end one, and should be top 2 in touchdowns. We saw a significant increase in usage in the red zone from him last season. A.J. Brown being gone is only going to exacerbate that need for them to lean on him once they get inside the 20, 10, 5, especially the 5. I mean, I believe inside the 5, he led... let me not lie. I believe inside... Do I have red zone stats pulled up? Yeah, I do. Inside the 5, Dallas Goedert led the league in targets? Yes. Yeah, I did not lie. Inside the 5, Dallas Goedert led the league in targets last season. Now, mind you, Dallas Goedert also dealt with injuries, so he did that on 14, 15 games. So, yeah, we saw a significant increase in his usage there. Now, I do think, obviously, the Eagles are going to lean back on Saquon Barkley, but from a receiving perspective in a red zone target, once they get close to the goal line, they're going to be looking at Dallas Goedert. So touchdowns are going to be pretty much a lock for him. And he could see an increase in targets as well as they try to work through this new receiving core. Mekhi Lemon should come along, but again, he's been dealing with injuries as well throughout preseason, and Dontavian Wicks has been added. Sounds like he's going to be a core piece and starter in that offense, but I feel very confident in the amount of red zone looks that Dallas Goedert is going to get to trust him as my tight end 1. So that is if I'm jumping to double-digit rounds, I stop at round 10, and I'm grabbing Dallas Goedert. If you have to go in round 9 to get it just to be safe, I'm okay with that. Other than that, when it comes to Jake Ferguson, I don't hate it, but it's no longer a massive high upside pick. It's somewhat safe, but the upside is essentially gone because of the fact that CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens there really just pushes him back to being the guaranteed third look. And I like my tight ends to be the second look. So that's the only issue. I don't think he'll be a bust in any way, shape, or form, just not a massive high upside pick. So somewhat safe if you have to do that. And then, of course, I do like Juwan Johnson to be the second look in that offense with Jordan Tyson dealing with the injury. It's been a long day, guys. I was streaming earlier, like a few hours ago. Was in the chat answering questions during a long stream. I shot multiple videos this morning, and they were for different sports. They were golf. It was my last golf video, sadly. It was my last golf video of the year. Oh, God, golf season is over. Tour Championship this year, so I'm going to miss it. And then I also shot a college football betting video because I will be doing college football betting. So bouncing back and forth between sports is, oddly enough, mentally taxing. But I am very excited to be doing college betting this season because that is only going to make my Dynasty rookie rankings 10 times better. So I'm very much so looking forward to that. So that is why, if you're like, Tara, why does it seem like you're confusing player names and then you go back and correct yourself? It's because it's been a super long day. And that was starting at 6 a.m. where I started getting up and having to get the kids ready. So, but we're here. And that was tight end strategy. So I hope that helps there with the mailbag question and for you, Razzle, as well, because we are getting thinned out here at tight end to where our late round options are not as trustworthy as they have felt in previous times. Jumping back to the chat here, Henry Odom says, if I draft Josh Jacobs, should I prioritize Lloyd during my draft? Yes, 100%. And I'm not always a you must handcuff kind of drafter, but in this situation, I do think you must handcuff. Now, I think the little quote about the Packers preparing for a suspension might have been slightly out of context. it sounds like they were saying like, hey, if it happens, we're prepared to be able to deal with that. Not that they were preparing because there is a suspension coming. So I don't know. Hopefully that little misinterpretation there, because that's the way that I was taking it. And I think that's the way that a lot of other people that dug into what was actually said took it. So hopefully if that happens, we get a little ADP discount. I would like it to drop even further. Where are we at on Josh Jacobs' ADP? Let's see if we had any kind of movement. Josh Jacobs. Oh, yeah, we had a little movement. This could push into round 4 for sure. Nice. I could see that, especially because people are feeling a lot more positive about Jalen Waddle, Travis Etienne. So yeah, I could 100% see this Josh Jacobs ADP bumping back into round 4, which would be ideal. Because, third round is great. It's a discount, but I want more of a discount. He is RB 17 right now. So Breece Hall has gone above him. Jeremiyah Love still holding strong. We saw a video of Jeremiyah Love walking around. So maybe Jeremiyah Love's, there was a video of him walking around carrying pizzas for his rookie duties. So maybe Jeremiyah Love's injury is not as dramatic, but we're not seeing a massive discount or drop in his ADP. So yeah, with Josh Jacobs, keep your eye out on that. Do prioritize Marshawn Lloyd as a handcuff. And Marshawn Lloyd's ADP has not jumped. I don't know if people are just skeptical of Marshawn Lloyd because of all of the injuries he's dealt with, but it's still sitting at around 14. So 100% make sure that you handcuff, because that would be Chris Brooks is there. But from everything the Packers have said, they want Marshawn Lloyd to take that step forward and be the direct handcuff. So I would 100% handcuff. But again, I think the wording might have been a little bit off in terms of their 100% sure being a suspension coming. Let's see here. Jump into the chat from Del J in PPR. Who should I pair with Bijan at 211 and 301 or 302 turn? Hold on. Who should I pair with Bijan at the 211, 302 turn? I'm leading towards Devontae and Kyron Williams, and then going wide receiver, wide receiver, wide receiver. So I've been doing a whole lot of mock drafting lately. I've been doing a lot of mock drafting shows. And if you ever want to see the mock drafts, I keep a schedule. So if you can check out my link tree and see the schedule of the mock drafts I'm doing. I'm doing one on Monday and Tuesday. Jesus. But the Monday one is what the Tuesday ones are on Twitch. They're fun 10-second clock mock drafts that are very rapid fire. So it's just for us to have fun, draft together, and the people in the chat, the audience drafts with us. So that's fun. So you can jump in, join, and draft with us. And it's just a fun rapid fire thing, and we answer questions. But the Monday chat will be, or the Monday mock draft will be a legit mock draft with a regular clock. So make sure that you check that out. And as I've been doing all these mock drafts, I have not gotten the 101 or the 102. But what I have noticed is that with those two picks, the builds that take Gibbs and Bijan and then come around with wide receiver, and then hit running back in round 4 look very nice. Not gonna lie. So while my preference, I enjoy going RB at the turn in the back half, or just RB wide receiver and then wide receiver in the back half of drafts. If you've got one of those early picks, I would double up at wide receiver there, because let's look at ADP and see the guys that now Chris Olave has been moving up, but he should still be available in that time. Just keep your eye, because a lot of these wide receivers, Chris Olave and Malik Neighbors, they are having some movement here. So, but if you come around after Bijan, you can, the wide receivers available would be Malik, Chris Olave, Devontae Smith would be there. Zay Flowers is reasonable. He tends to go later in round 3, but I think early round 3 is very reasonable for him. So my preference actually would be to go Bijan, wide receiver, because the round 4 running backs are actually holding pretty steady. Now in round 4, we've got Travis Etienne, that he's moving up a little bit, right? But he's still a round 4 pick. So we've got Travis Etienne in round 4. We've got DeAndre Swift in round 4 is a very nice, stable option as well. I occasionally see, depending on the draft, sometimes Javonte Williams will drop to a round 4 as well. Late round 4, I don't know that would get to you, but Travis is very realistic. Swift is extremely realistic to make it to you. So I'm not going to lie. I might risk it for the biscuit and go wide receiver there and come around with running back in round 4. Not going to lie. But your strategy would work as well. So if you want to play it a little bit safer, going with Devontae and Kyron and then banging it out at wide receiver, perfectly fine. But there are other options, just FYI on that. From Marvin Tolbert, I drafted JSN over Jamar Chase, trying to scroll up. Oh no! How bad did I do? I feel you on that. I have had some, not misclicks, but forgetting that I forgot that I was on the clock. I forgot that I was on the clock in one draft and ended up auto drafting. So yeah, it's been a weird it's been a weird draft season for me. So I feel you on misclicks and mess ups there. But drafting JSN over Jamar, I hate it, right? But at the end of the day, I'm not one of those people that thinks that JSN is going to have a massive regression. Yeah, there are other pieces on the offense, right? Cooper Kupp's still there. Rashid Shaheed obviously does have huge potential upside if they would actually utilize him as a consistent receiver and give him a consistent target share. And there's some younger options as well that I like. But at the end of the day, despite the fact that we are changing offensive coordinators, I think this offense is still, from a pass perspective, is still going to run right through JSN. So regression, whatever. I'm sorry. I still feel good with JSN as a top 6 pick, right? So, no, yeah, we want Jamar over JSN, but it's okay. You'll be all right. Let's see here. From Joe's, oh man, I'm behind in the chat. You know what? Rapid fire-ish to catch up here. Josu Hidalgo says, how far are CeeDee Lamb and Nico? How far are CeeDee and Nico? Pickens limiting CeeDee worries me. Yes, but here's the thing: is that Nico has a ceiling limitation too. So CeeDee has a ceiling, clearly a clear CeeDee ceiling limitation with George Pickens. It's an issue, but if you look at, because I did. If you take out the games where CeeDee Lamb was injured, right, and did not play 50% of snaps, and you only look at the ones where he was playing the majority of snaps, and then you do a per target and take it out over 17 games, he still was averaging like 150 plus targets. So, the volume is still there. The touchdowns coming down were the issue, but there have been points made by a lot of people that some of the touchdown, there were missed opportunities that were on CeeDee. So the season could have been better than what it was. It's a little bit misleading of it being a dramatic drop off because of George Pickens. Now, his ceiling is capped, right? He has no longer got the upside of that top 3 upside we saw before, but still a safe low-end wide receiver 1 pick. Nico also has a cap ceiling. We just don't want to admit it. The cap ceiling is CJ Stroud, right? CD has Dak. We know that when Dak plays a full season, Dak is giving you a certain level of Dak's giving you 30 touchdowns, right? Dak is giving you 4,000 plus yards. Like, you feel good about it when Dak plays a full season. That's a guarantee. But with Nico and CJ Stroud, you don't have that level of volume because CJ Stroud doesn't push that level of volume, and because the Texans don't have to push that level of volume because they have a fantastic defense that literally only got better. So Nico also has a ceiling limitation, so I don't really love him either. I don't love CeeDee. I don't love Nico as picks. My preference is to, and this is why my preference is kind of low-key, just to skip over, invest in running back, and then hey, I'm going to invest in running back early, and then I'm going to bounce around and hit wide receiver when it comes to guys like Chris Olave as a clear high-volume play now that he has Tyler Shuck for a full season and no Jordan Tyson for the foreseeable-ish future. Malik Neighbors, all those guys that we had talked about as potential picks at the turn there, Devontae Smith, right? So, yeah, I don't think you have to invest in those guys. The gap is not that big between them. If you want to pass over a CD and go with a Nico, just because, again, more clear, locked in volume from a clear, like, target perspective, I'm 100% okay with that. Rascal says, don't go with, Rascal makes a good point here. We talked about, because I can't remember who it was asking about Jefferson or Lamb, but Rascal has made a point in the chat saying, don't go with either of them. Need to go 2 wide receivers or need to go 2 RBs in the late first. And that's valid. It's oddly enough, for some reason, when I do the drafts where I go RB in the back half and then wide receiver in the third, it doesn't grade very well for some reason because you're not getting one of those elite upside wide receivers. But at the end of the day, they still look pretty. So they're like, there's nothing wrong with a draft or a Amari and Hampton, Saquon Barkley start. That's a pretty start, right? That James Cook, Saquon Barkley. Like, you can get those combinations, especially because I've seen Saquon drop. I see Saquon drop sometimes in a ridiculous level. You can get it. We're so deep at running back this year that you can realistically go RB if the right backs are there for you. Chase Brown is always lingering around. That is a very safe option that you could pair up with someone. So yeah, don't Rascal makes a very good point here. Don't feel beholden to take either one of those wide receivers in the first round. You can just go running back. But you know what? A lot of people have preferences where they want to push running back a little bit. So, we got to give options, right? Leaving says, Stribbling, almost a third rounder by next Monday. I promise it won't jump that high. Well, I say that, and you never know how high it could jump. It looks like it's settling in at round 9. I've been checking it daily. It looks like it's settling in here. There are no more dramatic leaps, so hopefully. Now, granted, because Mike Evans came out and said that he expects to be ready for week 1. Well, your expectations and what might happen are never actually the same thing. So you can say that you might be ready for week 1, but you have dealt with a wide variety of nagging injuries here. And I already had very limited faith, right? I love Mike Evans, but my faith was very limited on his ability to make it through the season, especially now that he's in San Francisco and he's getting attacked by the substation. So, okay, tinfoil, but seriously. But at the end of the day, I hope that I think round 8 is the highest that Stripling will push, realistically. I don't think it'll push into round 7. I don't think it'll do that, guy. It might. Now, round 8 is the cutoff. I think it's stabilized and it won't go that high. Okay, jumping back to the chat here. Alinda Blitz says, "Hey Tara, I'm in a PPR Superflex League, 10 team. Gibbs, Bijan, Josh Allen, and Jake and Jamar Chase are keepers. Won't be on the board. Second pick, should I go QB? Chase Brown is my keeper. Yes. So Josh Allen is not on the board. I would go. You have the second pick. Well, if I'm okay with going with either Lamar Jackson or Drake May. My preference would be Lamar Jackson, but if he is taken, I'm okay with going with Drake May as your first pick. Yeah. Sparky says, Miss Fantasy, nice to be a part of the chat. What you think about pick 7, picking Cook? Yes, I'm pro Cook, first round. I think it's very safe. The touchdowns exist no matter what Josh Allen is doing. He gets his, James Cook gets his. And last year was the highest volume of Cook's career, but it wasn't egregious. It was just like 300 carries. That's not that much, not a ton of work through the air. We do have rumors of, them saying that they want to get Cook more involved in the pass game. How much more pass volume can they be pushing realistically? Because we know that they have to also feed DJ Moore. So I don't know if I see a massive boost in that, but again, if we could see just a tiny little bit, that'll help. But very nice, stable option. I feel very comfortable with Cook. Actually, I took Cook in the league that I was talking about, my flex league draft. Cook was my first round pick. So yes, pro Cook. Pro Cook in the first round. Jay Salter says, "Hey Tara, question. What's a good strategy to start your draft? Usually go RB in the first 2 rounds. Thoughts?" I'm good with, flexible. Right? Depending on how everything falls and where you are picking. When I am picking at the beginning, actually, yeah. When I am picking at the beginning, if it was 101, 102, Gibbs, Bijan, I would then come around and I wouldn't go with another running back. I would take advantage, as I was talking about before, take advantage of those wide receivers that you have there. At least get one, maybe two if you want to risk it, but at least get one. And perhaps you can also go with a Brock Bowers there if you want to get an elite tight end. Could be available at the turn. Sometimes he does slip there. A lot of times it's mid-round one, but just keep your eye out on that. And then obviously, there's plenty of running backs that you can take in that area as well. If I'm picking from the mid-rounds, I actually did, and let me see, actually. I have a mailbag question that relates to this. Let me pull it up real quick. From the YouTube channel from Spartan BDE. Says, hi, Tara, love your channel. Pick 106 in my upcoming draft. If CMC is not available, would like to go double running back anchor. What would you recommend in that spot? League is 12 team full PPR. So I actually did a video where I talked about how I would pick from the mid rounds. Now, if you want to go with CMC, that's perfectly fine. If JT is available, my preference would be to go JT in the mid-round picks. If not, I am okay with going with Amon-Ra St. Brown around that area as well. If you want to just get a nice, stable lock guarantee, you could also push, we just talked about James Cook. I've seen people pushing James Cook up into the middle as well if they would prefer to lean heavy on running back in the first round and second round as well. My preference when I'm in those middle rounds is to get one of each and not double up at running back, because you can, right? But you have the ability to be flexible, get one of those strong round one receivers like a JSN or Amon-Ra, and then come around and still have good running back options personally. So, and also the thing about that is, again, once you come around to the third round, a lot of those receivers that are really solid third round picks, some of them might go before it gets to you in the mid round if there's a little bit of a run. So just beware that if you are going to double up at running back when you're picking from mid round spots, it does leave you a little bit vulnerable in terms of wide receivers going on a run before it gets back to you in the third. So just keep that in mind. And then if I were picking from, going back to the question here from Jay Slatters, if I were picking from the back half, that is where I do really enjoy going running back in the first round. So it all depends on varying up in terms of where you're picking, taking advantage of the high upside position that's available. But I do find it really hard to come out of those first rounds without at least one running back. So guaranteed one running back. Two, if it's advantageous, or if you have really good options at wide receiver, I'll just offer yourself that flexibility, right? Hope that helps there. I know that goes back a little back and forth there. I do really enjoy the RB starts, but the one place that I absolutely don't recommend it is if you're picking with Bijan or Gibbs. From Leaving says all Watson starts, just stream the D that plays the Browns early this season. 100% agree. Supreme Link says it's hard to get 3 workhorse backs this year. What are your best handcuff options? It is 100%. Just because everything kind of dries up and gets into a weird territory. Like I know a lot of people were like all off season, and this one kind of was like, right, all off season. A lot of my colleagues were very pro David Montgomery, and I was like, I don't know. I live in Houston. I see a lot of Woody Marks propaganda. It could very well be a 50-50 split. So I was not shocked when that little beat reporter tidbit came out of the split being very close to 50-50. That makes a ton of sense in my local mind here, especially considering that a lot of people were comparing it to David Montgomery to the Joe Mixon situation. And you got to remember, Joe Mixon came to the Texans as an RB1 existing. He had been an RB1, putting up RB1 numbers in Cincinnati. It's a completely different situation of David Montgomery coming from Detroit, where he was operating in a committee where he was not having a significant amount of work, and he's not been utilized as a workhorse back in like half a decade. So I was very hesitant to say, hey, we're bumping him back to like, oh yeah, 3. I'm like, man, it feels a little uncomfortable making that jump. in comparing it to Joe Mixon when it was just two very different players coming in off two very different situations. So I'm not shocked at that. So with that, you got Bucky Irving, you got DeAndre Swift, I actually do feel very good about, but he is in a known committee there with Kyle Monangai. I just feel good about him because they are an extremely run-heavy team with plenty of goal line opportunities, and Caleb Williams runs, but he's not a goal line sniper. So it's still a very safe situation. But yeah, things get very and then we got Cam Skattebo. Good God. Yeah, actually, let's talk about Cam Skattebo on the topic here, because that was my thumbnail. So I would be remiss not to actually talk about the Cam Skattebo situation. Offseason, if you followed me, I was very pro Cam Skattebo, because we saw him as a 3-down back. He was very successful. It was a very small sample size, right? But he was very successful as a 3-down back. Pass catching was not an issue. I was looking at this like, okay, yeah, and the Giants want to be run heavy. I was coming into it from a very positive perspective. And then they started doing weird things and saying weird things and bringing in additional players. We have the addition of Najee Harris. And by no means am I telling anyone to go out and draft Najee Harris. But it does make you pause and wonder, because we saw this weird committee usage in the first preseason game of them going from Skattebo to Tracy to Singletary, back to Tracy, back to Skattebo, like bouncing back and forth. And knowing that they do want to be run heavy, I worry that maybe it even doesn't have to do with them not wanting to put an aggressive workload on Cam Skattebo. Maybe when we're looking at the context of this offense and who is running this offense, they just want to run a 3-man committee, and maybe 4-man now that Najee is there. Yeah, I'm a little bit scared of this situation, unfortunately, with Najee Harris lurking in the corners. And I was very like, hey, we need to actually see Najee on the field. But there are boots on the ground that I actually trust in New York, and those boots have specifically said that Najee looks good. I'm skeptical, right? I was very skeptical coming off of an Achilles injury, like as someone who wasn't particularly explosive to begin with, right? But they say he looks very solid, looks good in pre-injury form. So I don't know, man. It makes me a little bit nervous, unfortunately, looking at that situation and feeling like once we get past DeAndre Swift in theory, right, again, because Swift is in the safe category because of pure volume, we get into a very murky situation, in my opinion, of guys that are in weird committees with limited upside or shaky situations. I mean, heck, we even go to a Jadarian Price, and we can't even guarantee the workload he's going to have. George Holani has been getting talked up so much in all offseason. I said, don't fear George Holani, but I don't know. I just don't trust the level of workload that we're getting there. I want to trust Bashal Tutin, but again, you just can't. How much trust can you put in the Jags after what they did to us from a backfield perspective last year with Tank Bigsby? So yeah, once we get past a certain point, the 3-down workhorse running backs, they run thin and it gets scary. So I have a hard time coming out of the first 5 rounds without 2 running backs. You push it back too far and you are asking for trouble. If you want to push it back, hey, go with the safer options from a pure volume perspective. I don't have a problem with the Quinshon Judkins. I know a lot of people have an issue with the Browns offense being bad, but it was bad last season, and Judkins was a fine low-end RB2 type of prospect or type of player. So I don't think it's that detrimental, but he does lack a ceiling because of the offensive situation. So yeah, come out with your running backs early. Travis Etienne has gotten more appealing with the Alvin Kamara injury, and the fact that they traded for Zamir White does tell me that maybe this is just perhaps the final nail in the coffin for Alvin Kamara. Dealt with the injury last season. You're injured right now. This might just be it for you. So now Alvin Kamara does slip into Travis Etienne does slip into a nice safe territory. So get your running backs, get them soon. And it makes it more important, as we talked about tight end strategy earlier, it makes it more important that we prioritize running backs, receivers, and maybe we have to get a little bit more creative with pushing those onesie positions back of tight end and quarterback. I will not lie. I have not, in all of my mock drafts and everything, unless it was a weird situation, I have not taken a top, what is Jalen Hurts sitting at? Jalen Hurts is at QB 6, right? Yeah. I have not taken a top 5 quarterback this offseason over the past month because there are too many other positions of priority for me to sit there and invest in one of those quarterbacks, knowing how I am messing myself at other positions. I can argue all day for a high-end tight end. That is not a problem. But the onesie position that I am pushing back, it's quarterback. It's outside of it's round 6 or later, guaranteed, 100%. I can't do it before then because I have to lock in 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, maybe a tight end, but probably 3 wide receivers too. So just take that advice as we kind of go through all of this. Catching up to some of the comments here. Stribbling, or DB Tell says stribbling with a 3rd pick, have 2nd overall. Struggling with, Jesus. I told you guys I was tired. I read stribbling. I was like, wow, stribbling with a 3rd pick. That's kind of crazy. Struggling with the 3rd pick. I have 2nd overall, starting RB. Yeah, and when, 2nd overall pick, RB. I think I talked about that one a little bit earlier. Come around with one of the wide receivers. I know maybe Malik Neighbors makes you a little uncomfortable coming off of the injury. I don't have a problem with it. Chris Olave, if he's there, is a smash for me, especially like if you look at the schedule to start off the season, knowing that Jordan Tyson is dealing with the injury. And if you're thinking it's going to be a month, I caution you, a man that has a recurring issue and has to see a specialist, I would take that as the baseline of best case scenario. It could push well out further than that. So Chris Olave is a high priority pick for me. So that is one. If you've got the 2nd overall pick in round 3, that's one that I would prioritize significantly, 100%. Going back here to the chat, Marvin Tolbert says Juwan Johnson or Isaiah Likely. Juwan Johnson. I feel super uncomfortable. Hopefully, maybe things will pan out with Likely. But my comfort level is more with just playing it safer and pushing Juwan Johnson. Juwan is up to round 12. He has moved up significantly, but round 12 still very reasonable. Tight end 16. Scott Klapke says, Tara, who is the player you don't understand why their ADP is where it is? Godwin, for me, should be in the 5th or 6th round, in my opinion. I did a video, or did I do a video? I can't remember if it was a video or short, something, but Godwin is one that I've talked about recently as well that I do think is mispriced. And I love basically, I love all Tampa Bay receivers. Leave your draft with one of them. If you can get a Mecca, great. It's tough to get him, obviously, because he's higher. Then turn around, try to grab. If you can't get a Mecca, try to grab Godwin. The value for him is excellent. They say that he is good to go, that he has returned to his pre-injury body. We haven't had any issues, unlike a Mike Evans, where we're getting constant news about him dealing with a wide variety of injuries. We're not having to deal with that with Godwin in terms of any massive fear of lingering issues. So I think he's perfectly fine. I don't know if I would push him up as far as a 4th round pick, but I feel very good about him. And then I love Ted Hurst as a late round pick as well. That is definitely one that is very perplexing to me in terms of his ADP. Another one for me, and this is one that everyone always looks at me sideways about, is Quentin Johnston. Guys, do not be shocked if we see another dramatic start from Quentin Johnston where he puts up top 10 numbers at the beginning of the season, especially as I looked at the Chargers schedule. Early on, they've got some nice, within the first several weeks, there's some very nice matchups. That's another one where I'm just like, you're drafting him below his floor. You can, say he drops passes all you want, but at the end of the day, he'll be on the field. And if we believe in Mike McDaniel and Justin Herbert, we should probably believe in more than just Lad McConkey. If you have the opinion that Quentin Johnston is not going to return value this season where he is being drafted, which is a ridiculous wide receiver. What is it? Wide receiver 43. That's wide receiver 43. If you have the opinion that he's not going to pay off at that ADP, people are taking Brandon Aubrey before Quentin Johnston. I just don't know what to tell you, because if that's the case, then you should be drafting Lad McConkey 1st overall. So... From leaving, Kraft is so physical, team would be smart to ramp him up for his own good. I think so as well. I'll try to speed things up here. Jay Slatters, my late round tight end target to get is Dallas Goedert. 100% agree. Easy E says, have a good night, Tara. I totally agree. Goedert can be a sneaky good with AJ gone. Leaving says, Kittle falls close to Goddard territory, at least something to think about. Yes, although sometimes, let me see. Because Kittle is one of those ones where it's tough to pinpoint. He's round 7 right now, especially with the news of him like potentially being ready for week 1. It doesn't sound like he's going on the pop. So as we're kind of leaning into drafts this weekend and next week, round 7, I don't think it'll drop beyond that. Yeah. So Goddard's round 10. Kittle is a little bit before that. But I think Kittle is still a reasonable price at round 7. You just need, obviously you might need to stream later with a Jawan Johnson or something. Or, if Kittle's not ready, you can just go with a Jake Tonjes as a streaming option. But just be prepared just in case. But I think he's perfectly fine as well. Mark Schaefer says, 3rd pick. 12-team PPR, would you pass on Puka or Jamar and take Taylor or Cook as RBs or super premium? They are super premium, but I would still take both Puka and Jamar before the running backs. Preference would be like, I have leaned towards the safety of going with Jamar over Puka, begrudgingly, because my preference is Puka. But the suspension thing, right? So technically speaking, you have to go Jamar over Puka, but whatever. I'm still going with both of them before I hit the running backs. Let's see here. Miles Logan says, I hope Marshawn Lloyd's ADP doesn't move at all. I don't think it's going to move a lot at all. Jedi Master Howie says, hi, Tara, love your content. Thank you. Shout out to Pavis J in the comments as well. Hope you're doing good. And question is, in PPR, picked up Kenneth Walker over Saquon. Mistake. I do have Saquon ranked higher because Walker still comes with his inherent risk. And I'm not the whole Kenneth Walker can't make it through a season. I'm not one of those. But it's a new team, new situation. This will be a new level of workload for him. So there are those concerns. Saquon is just a much safer pick for a bounce back in an offense that we know is going to be run heavy. But Kenneth Walker is still, at the very least, a mid-round 2 pick, so it's not a mistake. Jay Slatter says that he would rather have Barkley as well. Slick Kents says at the 104 full PPR, who would you like to start off most with? Puka, considering JSN, but next 2 targets are round 2 and 3 if I get one of them. Yeah. Or who should I target next to if I get one of them? Yeah, Puka is who I would go with. I don't think it's wrong to consider JSN if you want to play it safe, but Puka is my preference. And then in round 2, I would absolutely get one of those running backs. At 104, at the very least, you should have a Derrick Henry fall. Now, sometimes this is personal preference of how people in your league are drafting, but typically speaking, the one that would be there would be your last call of Derrick Henry. At the very least, if you can't get him there, or if you want to wait till 3rd round and get Kyren would be available for you more than likely coming around the turn in 3rd round. So you could switch it up however you want. You could go with a running back and then come around and get a wide receiver. Or if your preference there is you just want to risk it and go with a high-end wide receiver there like an Olave or something and come around and get Kyren in the 3rd, I think that's perfectly fine. Eric Muniz says, 12th pick, 12-team PPR starters are Jamar, Hampton, Chase Brown, Lad McConkey, Michael Wilson, Tyler Warren, ETN at flex. Got my top RBs at the 1-2 turn. Nice. Got my QB and tight end at the 5-6 turn. Rate my team 1 to 6. It's an 8 for me. I don't love Michael Wilson right there at the time. I think it could end up paying off, but I think at the beginning of the season, they will try to have Marvin Harrison Jr. as the alpha in that offense, and we just saw a lot. Now, granted, offensive system is changing, right? But we did see last season that when Marvin Harrison Jr. was on the field, it just limited the overall upside. of Michael Wilson. I'd be curious what wide receivers you have on your bench, because there should have been some good, bench wide receivers for you to grab a little bit later in the late mid rounds. But I love that start of a combination of Chase Brown and Hampton. McConkey as a wide receiver one, I think is perfectly fine. I like the investment into Warren, and I think flexing at running back with ETN is very solid. So you're super, super strong at running back. I'd be curious what your bench is. Mark Rockwood says there's so many injuries already with running backs. Would it be wise to pick up handcuffs with old running backs? Yeah, and I think they said it a little bit earlier. I'm not typically one to handcuff directly with a running back because I do like to shoot for upside, but this season with certain players, I think it is perfectly fine if you want to do that, because there are some things going on that are making us a little bit uncomfortable, like in some guys that are higher risk, like if you're drafting CMC, technically speaking, it should go back to Jordan James. Kayshon Boutte came in because of the injury, but I would handcuff for sure. So I'm pro handcuffing this year. Supreme Link said, I have gotten sniped on Stribling and best ball. Oh, I hate that for you. I got sniped in best ball on him too. So it's very frustrating. It's one of those ones where it's so random how high the pick can go. Loving Life says, I have pick 4. I want to go RB and I don't trust CMC. So it's Taylor or Cook. Who do you prefer? Yeah, I'm with Loving Life. We are the same here. We're of the same mind wavelength. JT. Trust JT. The workload will be there as it is always. And God, sorry, I was just reminiscing on the way JT was in the first half of the season last year. It was so wonderful. Life was good. Life was easy. The Colts schedule was weird last season, and it was backloaded very heavy. This season, much more spread out, so we shouldn't run into that issue. And obviously things do hinge on Daniel Jones, but for all intents and purposes, he looks good and healthy right now. So yes, JT is my preference. From Bijou B, trade Jeremiyah Love and Ibuka for AJ Brown. Your other wide receiver is JSN. Love and Ibuka for AJB is a wee bit too much for me. I can't do it. I'm sorry. I can't do it. Ibuka, if you're worried, Ibuka it sounds like he should be fine. So don't panic. You should be okay. And Jeremiyah Love sounds like he should be fine. So I would not, I know you've got injury guys, but do not panic. Majord says, hi Tara, how would you start in 2 QB league with the 11th pick? I would take a quarterback with either the first or second round for sure. I know some people, because of depth, are like pushing it back. And Superflex, I don't care how deep quarterback is, I will not push my quarterback out of the first 2 rounds. I can't do it. Now, because you have the 11th pick, what you can do is you can go running back or receiver there, depending on what high upside option is there. I would probably cut it off at CMC is probably, and again, I'm not pro CMC, but if you are, I would cut it off at CMC or JT, maybe JSN. Maybe JSN is the cutoff there, and then push quarterback back to round 2. So 100% you're coming out with a quarterback in Superflex out of those 1-2 rounds. Just don't double up at quarterback because you're already at a disadvantage there picking at the end. Just do quarterback in either the first or the second, best available position elsewhere, and then you can push your QB2 back a little bit further because we do have depth. You can push it back to Kyler, Tyler Shuck, Malik Willis. Those are all fine. But yeah, hey, even a Baker Mayfield, those are all fine options. Super chat here from Turd Ferguson. Thank you. If you drafted late, who is your top pick, or who's your top picks? 10. Okay, so from pick 10, my preference there is if running back is available, if James Cook or Saquon Barkley is available, that is my preference. You guys know that I love Devon Achane. I have come to terms with the fact that I don't need to push that in round 1. He will always, 9 times out of 10, unless there's an Achane lover, now pay attention if there's an Achane lover, we'll probably push back to round 2. So it's not something that you have to do in the first round. So my preference there is to go with a James Cook or Saquon. If either of those are gone, then I do pivot probably to a Justin Jefferson. And then I come back around and I would 100% grab a running back early with that pick in the second, for sure. Turd Ferguson also says, I've seen CD and Jefferson go to the same team in round 1 and 2. Oh, I couldn't do that. In a 10-team league, PPRs, that would be insane. I give up. I give up early RBs for that. Yeah, I couldn't do that. I could go with one, but I couldn't do both. That would hurt my heart significantly. And you can, from that position, you can just go RB. You can. It's very reasonable. You could get a Saquon and a Chase Brown. You can get a Saquon and a Hampton, for sure. 100%. Saquon and a Walker, if that floats your boat. From Chris Ming, low-key feel Hibner is going to take Mark Andrews' job this year. That's my sleeper. And this is why. It's funny, because there was a discussion earlier on a live that I was on about Mark Andrews, and it was a little bit of an argument. It's like, I think Andrews is cooked, man. What can still happen is touchdowns can still come through, because at the end of the day, he's a big body in the red zone, right? But you know who else is a big body in the red zone? Jacoby Lane. So I think we're going to continue to see the regression of Mark Andrews. Zay Flowers' year. Zay Flowers is up. Yay, Jacoby Brissett. I almost said Jacoby Brissett. Well, yay, Jacoby Brissett as well. Yay, Jacoby Lane. And yeah, we could see a changing of the guard potentially at tight end, even though they paid Mark Andrews for whatever reason. Shout out to Marvin Tolbert that said, get the likes up. Thank you. I always forget to ask. Jeffrey Moore says, I swapped 3rd pick for the 8th. Who would you pick at 8th on the turn? Yeah, I think that's reasonable. At 8th, that is a lovely place for James Cook. 8th is a lovely place for James Cook. Sometimes you have James Cook truthers that will take him as early as 5 or 6. I've seen it. But 8th is a really good place for James Cook. Black Ice Fish says, love your streams. Thank you. I am in a $1,000 per person. Whoo. Okay, that's serious. $1,000 per person, 18, Superflex, PPR. Do I wait on QB because after the tier 1 guys, everyone else is so close? Can I load up on wide receiver and running back and wide receiver early? I still would go with one elite quarterback still, because wherever you're picking in round 1, you still could get a solid option. Now, I will say, depending on where you're picking, your preference, right? My preference would be that I am prioritizing Josh Allen through Jaden Daniels. I can get there with Jaden Daniels just because, again, we got Stephon Diggs added, so he now has a more well-rounded group of pass catchers, the rushing upside. Like, I can get there, right? After that, if those guys are gone, I am leaning heavily into, and honestly, I could low-key snap it off at Drake May, if I'm being honest. But I would lean heavily into Jahmyr Gibbs, Bijan, Puka, Jamar Chase. So yes, if those top elite options are gone, take your best available at another position, then you would still need to get a quarterback in round 2. Because so kind of similar to what I was saying with the previous one with a 10-team league, I would still come around and do that as well, because the guys in that area of particularly Trevor Lawrence, Justin Herbert, even a Caleb Williams, they all have clear, easy top 5 upside, right? Especially Trevor Lawrence. I'm not biased on that one. After the first, 4 games of the season, Trevor Lawrence was QB1 overall through the end of the season. Yeah, it gets ignored. The rushing upside came up. So yeah, I still preference the first 3 or 4, but after that, you can push it back a little bit. And then what I would do for you, because it is 8-team, I would fade my QB2 back as far as humanly possible. Stack your lineup with wide receivers and RB, get you an elite tight end as well. Get a good one. Top 4, maybe cut it off at, 5, cut it off at Harold Fannin Jr., maybe. Tyler Warren, perhaps, if you want to cut it a little earlier, just to be safe. And then push your QB2 back as far as humanly possible. 18-team league, you can dip back into the Jared Goff, Malik Willis, Tyler Shock, Kyler Murray area is what I would do personally. 100%. Shout out to ClickShare in the comments. Made it in. You made it in. I'm about to close things out. But you made it in. ClickShare says, is Casey Concepcion startable in flex, or are we wait and see mode? Oh, I'm in a wait and see mode. Who is that? I have not looked at the Browns week 1 match. I just don't trust Deshaun. I'm sorry. I can't get there. I don't trust Deshaun. What is the week 1 matchup? Jacksonville. It's a decent defense. I don't know if I trust Deshaun. I want to give it a week before I see it. But I am pro Casey Concepcion, and hopefully we can start him within the first 3 weeks. But I would give it a week before. Just like, yeah. You could start Jonathan Brooks, Keenan Allen, or Dallas Goedert in flex. Keep your eye on Keenan Allen because Josh Downs is dealing with a calf injury. So I could see Keenan popping off early. Keenan popped off early last season. Through the first 4 weeks of the season, Keenan Allen was wide receiver 14 in half PPR. Yeah. So keep that in mind. Do I trust him to maintain it throughout the entire season? No. But do I trust it at the beginning of the season? Yes. And then Jonathan Brooks, depending on the Chuba Hubbard situation, that could be an option as well. So yeah, you've got options. You've got options for sure. Marvin Tolbert says 6 pick. At the 6 pick starters, Hurts, Cook, Omarion, JSN, Devontae, Kittles. Flex is ETN, Judkins, Baltimore D, kicker. How did I do? You're stacked at running back. I love that combination. I like this team. I think you did very well. I love the heavy RB builds for sure. Eric Munoz says wide receivers are, continuation for Eric here. Wide receivers are Concepcion, Caleb Douglas. You have Jacoby Lane, Mekhi Lemon, Trey Tucker. You also have Jordan Mason and 2 other QBs, Williams and Shuck. Okay, nice deep bench here for sure. Which I love the rookie combinations you've got. You got a lot of promise there. It'll be interesting to see how things work out in Miami. With how quickly Chris Bell will come on, or if Chris Douglas will be the alpha from the beginning. But I don't mind him as a potential option. But he's one I'll give a week and wait and see. Jordan Mason might be a startable option for you week 1, to be honest. 100%. But I love your team. I really do. I love that you leaned heavy into. This is a perfect example of leaning heavy into youth. I would rather the high upside young rookies than taking the chance with, the lame duck veteran receivers there. So like your team a lot. Turd Ferguson says, who are your favorite QBs this year? Trevor Lawrence, Justin Herbert. I haven't taken a lot of Caleb Williams, but I'm perfectly fine with it. I just haven't really, I think he goes before I start clicking. And then once he goes, then I'm like, oh, okay, let me lean towards Justin Herbert or Trevor Lawrence. But yeah, those are my favorite. Honestly, I haven't been taking the early guys. Bo Nix is another interesting one if you want to wait. I mean, just a bevy of weapons, right? His rushing upside doesn't appear to be any mobility issues, but, maybe he just takes it safe with the rushing upside to begin the season, but it should be a very nice, safe floor season for him with some high upside. So Bo Nix is one that I don't mind. I'm terrified of Brock Purdy because he's a safe pick, but obviously there's nothing but injuries that are happening over there, and I'm just highly skeptical of the amount of injuries that we've gotten. His, starting wide receiver could end up being a trash can at the end of the day if everyone just keeps getting injured. But I have high hopes for Stribling, but it's just, I'd rather go with other options around him. I don't mind going with Dak Prescott as a nice value pick because of pure volume. And then, as I mentioned before, I do like the later quarterbacks, but none of those are my super flex preferences. I tend not to push that far back in QB1. Johansson said, did I give any thoughts on a viewer fantasy league? Sorry, I can't do it. I'm taking on a new workload this season, so I want to make sure that all of my content is perfect here and all of the contract work that I do as well. So because I'll have such a high workload, I'm opting not to do a viewer league this season, but maybe next year we'll get it together. I promise. I promise I will think about it next year, but it's just a little much this year for me. Going to be a lot. As I mentioned, I'm doing college football betting and NFL betting. I did NFL betting as well, but NFL betting, NFL DFS, all of those bounce backs just makes it a little like a little much, right? From Alinda, full PPR, Lamar, Burrow, Prescott. It is Lamar for me. From Positive Planets, what are the best sites for payout percentages? Haven't played fantasy in 7 years. After playing 7 years, I don't know. I really don't know. I don't pay attention to payout percentages with I don't know if you mean like with Underdog and stuff like that, DraftKings for best ball stuff, and fantasy leagues. I don't pay attention to that whatsoever. Sorry. Wish I did, but I don't. But outside of that, I appreciate you all tuning in. Thank you so much. I know we have a lot of drafts going on this weekend and next week. So if you have any comment or any questions, feel free to hit me up in the comments for sure and ask away. Oh, a quick share before we close things out says, who's your favorite wide receiver sleepers? Shaheed or Watson? My favorite wide receiver sleepers are rookies. I am leaning aggressively in that direction. Obviously, a guy like Stribling is no longer a sleeper. I think that Casey Concepcion is still a very reasonable price. Denzel Boston is still a fantastic price because, again, they get that nice discount for, what is Boston? Boston is round 14. So they get that nice Browns discount. But at the end of the day, I do ultimately think that we're going to see the switch to Shedeur Sanders. I think it's better for the team, and they will still have to throw the ball, so volume can be there. So I still really like them as well. Again, other rookie sleepers that I like are Jacoby Lane. I think he'll take over and push Rashad Bateman out of the way. So those are some of my favorites. And then some of my more standard sleepers are guys like Jalen Coker, should be the second look to Teteroa McMillan, and honestly, low-key could push very even for targets there. So I love me. Oh my gosh, I did not mention Ted Hurst. Sorry, love Ted Hurst as a rookie as well. So standard like Jalen Coker, love Quentin Johnston. So those are my more standard late like round 9, 10, 11, 12-ish kind of range sleepers. And then thoughts on Davante Adams. I just drafted him in best ball because I think it's valuable in best ball because there will be spikes. But I don't know that I want to mess with it on a week-to-week basis because it was very touchdown heavy. Now, I do think the touchdowns will still come. His target rate, I mean, my God, the amount of targets he had in the red zone was absolutely stupid. Matt Stafford, anytime he got into the red zone, he was looking for a Davante Adams. So touchdowns will still be there, but he is a year older. A lot older than a lot of receivers. It does come with a little bit more inherent risk. So my preference would be more of a wide receiver 3 as a flex option, but it's really tough, unfortunately, for that to happen with him. So I have not found myself targeting him a lot in redraft leagues, but in best ball, I do get behind it. And then Robert Scobie says Bernard Steelers. Only if the injury things going on with DK and Pittman are serious, but it doesn't seem like they are. I just don't know that there will be enough volume to go 3 deep at receiver. So I like him for the future for sure, but it does sound that DK and Michael Pittman would have preference. And I'm sure that they still want to. I mean, they added Rico Dowdle for a reason. I think they still want to run a very evenly split offense, try to lean on the ground game. Check downs should still be plentiful to the not the way they were last year, but they still should be plentiful. But unfortunately, I don't know that there will be enough volume to make Bernard relevant this year. But he has looked really good this offseason, so I think there's promise there for him, sure. But that wraps things up, guys. I appreciate you all tuning in. Gotta close things out, go off and get these children to bed. It is a school night. And thank you so much for tuning in. I will be back with you next week. And again, as I mentioned, if you have any questions, if you're doing drafts this weekend or anything, feel free to drop me a comment. Yes, Parker Washington as well. Do love Parker Washington and Cyrus Allen. Cyrus Allen in deeper leagues, because the role that he would take over is not for Rashee Rice, but I think would be more of a deep threat, pushing out Xavier Worthy and taking advantage of that. But again, and yes, love Parker Washington. But that wraps things up. I will talk to you guys again next week, same time, same place. Have a wonderful weekend. Enjoy this last round of preseason football, guys. Talk to you later.
From the Podfather to you, I deeply appreciate you tuning in. And many ask, what can I do? What can I do to help support the hosts, the research they do, the production costs? Go to playerprofiler.com, Dynasty Deluxe, World Famous Draft Kit, Rankings, DFS Dominator, and of course, data analysis. Subscribe to any one of those, and you support all of us and take Player Profiler to the moon.